Well, friends, thank you so much for watching this video. You may have heard our pastor Rick talk about a book study that our church is going to engage in this summer over this book right here called God's Outrageous Claims. I could tell you a lot of cool stuff about it, but what I've learned is from the horse's mouth is better, and we have the author here with us, Lee Strobel. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm glad to do it. I'm excited about the book study. That's awesome.
What I learned is this is the second book that you wrote, and it was many years ago.
Right.
And so if you could step back into just kind of what God was doing in that time, and what was the linchpin to saying, I got to write this stuff down?
Yeah, this really grew out of a series of messages that I gave to a mixed audience of many non-believers who are sort of spiritual seekers, who are investigating faith, and committed Christians. And I wanted to try to reach both of them by talking about a variety of really important subjects that God brings to us in an unexpected way. Things about forgiveness, things about relationships, friendships, things about sexuality, and so forth, in a way that I hope would encourage spiritual seekers to take the next step toward God, and in a way that would deepen the faith of believers and help them see that God's ways are the best ways. Even though we read His teachings and they seem outrageous sometimes, that when we apply them, they actually work for our good.
Yeah, what I love about this is that it does reach individuals on whatever spiritual journey that you would you're at, whether you would say I'm a seeker or I've been following Jesus for years. You can get great benefit out of reading this book. And so what would be your hope for someone who reads it?
Yeah, I hope that it would be that they would take a step in their faith journey. If they're a seeker, I hope it'll bring them to faith in Jesus Christ, or be that step that takes them further down the path toward Jesus Christ. If they're a believer, I hope they say, you know what, I would love my spiritual life to be deeper, richer, more adventuresome, more fulfilling. And I hope it's a step in that direction as well.
You talk about a broad range of topics, and I'm like reading some of the chapters, freedom and forgiving, surviving the rat race without becoming a rat. That's my favorite one, by the way. God has a cure for your secret loneliness. And then as you taught here on Sunday, you touched on this, playing it safe is the most dangerous way to live. And so wherever a person is on their spiritual journey, this is going to touch on some heavy topics, right?
Yeah, they're heavy, but they're important. You know, for instance, you mentioned the chapter on how to get through the rat race without becoming a rat. That's a chapter about how it is we can apply biblical principles in our professions, whatever profession we have, whether we're a bricklayer or whether we're president of Microsoft, doesn't matter, to take biblical principles and bring them to life in that world to find out that, golly, they work. And you know, if we weigh out the pros and cons of following Jesus in the workplace, we find that the benefits far outweigh the risks. That's unexpected to people, I think. They think it's better to cut ethical corners sometimes than it is to adhere to honesty in the marketplace. And I try to demonstrate in this book the way that God's principles are good for us, and honestly, they're good for business.
Yeah. So I've been a pastor now for about 17 years, and even hearing the things you just said, like even those in ministry, like we need to remember why we're doing this and not get caught up in the stuff, and remember the one, right? And so I love that. So in this book study, you know, our hope is that we can sit around a table and we can talk about this book. Have you seen how that could benefit a person being able to do that?
Absolutely. There's, you know, it's one thing to read something, it's another thing to talk about it. And that just drives the scriptures and the biblical teaching deeper into our heart and soul. I know that in my own life, if I read something by myself, I kind of skip through it and I catch the gist of it and I feel like I've got it. But when I'm going to talk to someone about it, it forces me to really dig in and to begin to question, how does this apply to my life? How can I make this come alive in my spiritual life and so forth? So I think that a discussion group is so important, and I think it'll be a rich and rewarding experience for those that take the time to come.
Everything's better in community.
It is.
Everything is better in community. You said something in your teaching on Sunday that I would love to talk about real quick. You said this, God doesn't just want to reach our intellect. He wants to reach our heart.
Yeah.
Can we talk more about that?
Sure.
I think so many times we try to approach God and trying to figure him out here that we would miss it here.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Well, it's so true. And this comes from someone who's an apologist, which means I give evidence for the faith. And people, I think of me and they think of my books, The Case for Christ, The Case for Faith, and so forth. And they think, oh, he's an apologist. He gives evidence and facts and reason and logic and arguments why Christianity is true. And I do that. But it's one thing to understand cognitively, intellectually, the theology of who God is. Yeah. It's quite another thing to know him personally, to experience him.
Right.
You know, the Bible says, taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yeah.
Tasting is to experience him. The Bible says that Adam knew Eve. The Hebrew there suggests that meant more than he knew her email address. Yeah. You know, he knew her intimately. And so we can know God in a way that goes beyond just knowing the facts about God. Yeah. We can experience him personally. We can taste and see that he is good. And that takes us to a whole different level. It goes from the head to the heart.
Right. Intellect can change a little bit, but when we taste and see, it really touches everything.
Absolutely.
I am stewing on that quote. Lee, thank you so much for being
I'm excited
here.
About the book study.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to hear back. On how it goes and how people responded and their experiences.
Yeah, friends, like Lee said, you're going to want to be a part of this. It kicks off June the 16th here in the Foundry in this room. It's going to be from about 7 to 8:30. You can reach out to Robert Copeland, email him to get connected, but buy the book. Even if you couldn't do the study, buy the book. But man, I would ask you to be courageous and step into the book study with us.
Take a risk.
Yeah, take a risk. Yeah, thank you. Lee, you're such a good friend of the Harbor. We love you. We love your family.
I love the Harbor.
Thank you for this time,
It's
buddy.
always a joy to be here.